Target 2.1 deals with equations of circles, being able to look at an equation and come to some conclusions about where the center and radius would be, and you also have to be able to be given the center and radius and write an equation as well. And occasionally you'll come across some problems that are a little more challenging, where they won't just give you the center or just the radius, and you'll have to do some other calculations. And that's what question 11 is kind of like. They don't give us the radius, but they give us the center point, -2,7, and a point on the edge of the circle at the point 1,3. Now what I like to do is make a little sketch of, just a rough sketch of what the circle would look like. When I look at these points, I notice that the center has a -x and a positive y, and that the point on the edge of the circle has a positive x and positive y. So that means if I was to try and draw my x and y axis, I don't really need to see a whole lot in the negative values. So I'm just going to make an x-axis, and then my y-axis, I want to see several positive values, but I'm not really concerned about the negative values, because it looks like this circle, just based off the points they gave me, is going to be somewhere up above the x-axis. So what I do is I just start out by plotting those 2 points. I got -2,7 at the center and 1,3 on the edge of the circle. And then what I'm going to do is go back and just kind of do a rough sketch of what this circle would probably look like. Okay, so make the sketch of the circle, just draw it around. And then what I'm going to do is I realize, okay, this point 1,3 is on the edge of the circle, and I know the center is located at -2,7. So that means the distance between those two, between the center and the edge of the circle, that is the radius. That's what I need to find in order to be able to write the equation. Because again, to write an equation of a circle, you just need the center point and the radius. So to find that radius, we're going to use the 2 points that we're given. Since that is a slanted distance, we can't really tell what it is. We can't just sort of count the boxes or anything. But what we can do is we can use the Pythagorean theorem, and we could think of that as like a little triangle there. So I realize that there's some distance between those points vertically in the y direction, and there's some distance in the x direction horizontally. I just need to know what those distances are. So what I do is I look at the y coordinates, and I realize that the y at the center is at 7, and the y coordinate for the point on the edge of the circle is 3. And what's the distance between 7 and 3? That's a distance of 4. So just to go from the center to the edge of the circle, we're going down a distance of 4. And then horizontally in the x direction, the center was at -2, and the point on the edge of the circle has an x value of 1. So in the x direction, from -2 to +1, that's a distance of 3. And it's getting a little cramped, so I'm going to redraw this triangle off to the right side, make it a little bit bigger, easier to see. Again, I still have just labeled my points and just drew this triangle. So it's a triangle with a radius on the hypotenuse, and then 2 legs with lengths of 4 and 3. Now, since I know the length of the legs, what I can do is use Pythagorean theorem, which is a squared plus b squared equals c squared. So a and b are like my 3 and 4 sides, and the c would be the radius side. So I know that the radius squared has to equal 3 squared plus 4 squared. Well, 3 squared is 9, 4 squared is 16, and if I add those up, I get 25. So if you take the square root of 25 to solve for the square root of r squared to get r by itself, then you get the radius has to equal 5, because the square root of 25 is 5. Now that I know the radius, and I know the center of the circle is at -2,7 already, I can simply go back, plug those into how we normally write the equation of a circle. So I have x plus 2 squared plus y minus 7 squared. Again, all you do with the center is you just sort of look at the actual coordinate of the center and flip the signs of the x and y and put those with the x, y in your equation. So -2, or the 2 was negative at the center, so it becomes plus 2 in the equation. The 7 was positive in the y direction, so we subtract it in the equation. And then you do those two sides, x plus 2 squared plus y minus 7 squared, and that always equals the radius squared. Well, 5 squared just gives us 25. So there's our equation, and that's how we find the equation of this circle. When we're given a center and a point on the edge of the circle, we have to find the distance between those 2 points. That's our radius, and then just write the equation from there. Any questions, leave a comment or send me a message, and then you can move ahead to your next target.